Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And I'm very excited to introduce our guest today. And this is Travis Luther. Hi, Travis.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm very good, very good.
Good. So I am super excited to interview you today and have a conversation because you are, I think you're a true definition of entrepreneur, right? I mean, you started several businesses, you exited businesses, you are, let me read your bio and then people will understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. And then we're going to start talking and we're going to make it fun because this is, it's like we just talked before the show and you told me you have a podcast, which is actually it's like a comedy, right?
Yep.
So we can't have this serious. We can have a serious conversation, but
not too much of it. Yeah.
No, we can't. All right, good. So here we go. So you are the founder of Luther Media LLC, and companies have included TrialLine, Valet Ads, right? And the Queen Anne Pillow Company. You're also the former frontman of the band Ultra Fine.
Mm-hmm.
And you have parlayed his storytelling success into a successful writing career, which is awesome. And you're the host of your very own podcast, the Travis Luther Podcast, a hilarious on-air quiz show dedicated for life and entrepreneurs, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So, Travis, let's start with your story. You have a story to tell that I know can be very inspiring for a lot of entrepreneurs. How did you get started on your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I came from a very poor family. My mother got pregnant with me when she was 15 and had myself and my two younger brothers by the time she was 19. She was a single mom. We were living in a very small rural town in Washington with a population of about 13, four of those were my family. So being born in LA and then moving there was quite a change. But, I remember that my brothers and I really loved all the space that we had. We had horses around and chickens and things like that. And we really got to run free like feral cats. It was a lot of fun, but there were challenges around that. My father was a alcoholic and a drug addict who was largely absent most of my life. He eventually died when I was a teenager from his drug abuse. And so very early on in my life, I was kind of the natural leader of the family, if you will. And I think that translated to being a natural leader in other areas of my life. Because of that turbulence, I had to move out of my house when I was 2 weeks before my 16th birthday, and then shortly thereafter took informal custody of my two younger brothers. And it was really in that time that I realized that the opportunities that I wanted in life, I was going to have to make for myself. And I just naturally fell into entrepreneurship. Even when I was younger, my mom said I was always working on little schemes, as she called them, little ways to make money so I could buy baseball cards or bubble gum or whatever I wanted. But I was always thinking about money, which I guess is good and bad. Probably don't want your kids thinking about money at that age. But, it really helped me see the possibilities in the world for a person like myself who didn't have a tremendous amount of familial support or mentors in my life. So that was really what kind of drove me and got me started in entrepreneurship, was almost out of basic necessity and just kind of a natural leadership that I had from being the oldest son of a single mom.
Wow. That's quite a story, quite a success story. Well done.
Thank you.
Very well done. Yes, absolutely. So what was your first company?
Well, I joke that my first company was in the fifth grade when I started selling feeder mice to the local pet store. I had gotten two mice as pets for a science project actually at school, but they ended up doing what mice do. And pretty shortly after I got them, they had little babies, and I called the pet store like, hey, what the heck am I supposed to do with these babies? And the guy said, I'll buy them because I feed them to the snakes. And so for about a year, I bred these feeder mice to sell to the snakes, which is kind of funny. So, that was kind of my real, I wouldn't say formalized business, but that was kind of my real, profit and loss, supply and demand understanding of the business world. But after
I said, this is brilliant, absolutely brilliant,
and totally accidental, as most of my great ideas were. They were total accidents and not inspired by any genius on my own, but just something I kind of stumbled into. But my first real license business came probably 6 or 9 months after I moved out. A friend of mine and I started a skateboard shop upstairs in a bakery that had a little retail space for rent. And we sold new skateboards and skateboard clothing. And then because we were in a college town, we also sold used ski and snowboard equipment on consignment. And so the college students would come in and leave our stuff there, and we would price it out and sell it for them. Maybe 6 months after that opened, somebody broke in and stole everything.
Oh.
And so that was my first business failure, as well as my first business. And we didn't have insurance, didn't know anything about insurance. So ended up getting sued. And by the time I was 17, I had lost my first lawsuits and had gone back to working for the man, as we say, and had my wages garnished to pay those lawsuits off. But that was the first business. And you'd think I would have given up after that, but I'm a glutton for punishment. So I just kept going.
Or maybe we can call it grit, and just persistence, which is very admirable. All right. And then what happened?
So that coffee shop that we were in was kind of the local hangout for college students. It had a stage upstairs where our retail space was. They would have bands play there. And then downstairs, the students had a bakery and a coffee shop, and they would study and gather. And the woman that owned it decided to move to San Francisco to be with her family. And so there was suddenly this big void of, kind of an artsy coffee shop where college students could hang out. So myself and that same guy that started the skateboard shop with me thought, hey, how might we start a coffee shop? Like, how might we try and recreate what was already downtown? And I don't know how, being a friend of mine and being in business with me, I don't know how he managed to save any more money, but he still had a few $1,000s left over from our first business and agreed to put that in. And I had rounded up a few $1,000s, and then we had met a third guy that put in another few $1,000s. I think all in all, we raised like $11,000. And so we ironically went into that pet store that I used to sell the mice to, because it had become vacant. The guy had left, and we renovated it and turned it into a coffee shop and art gallery.
Wow. What city was that in Washington?
Pullman, Washington, east side of Washington, where Washington State University is located.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So we had that.
So the coffee shop. So what happened there?
So we had that for a little while, and then somebody came into the coffee shop who owned a drive-through, and he wanted to get out of the coffee business to get into the frozen yogurt business. So he made me a deal that I could take over his building and his coffee shop, and he would finance it for me at a very reasonable low rate. And so I jumped on it, thinking this might be really a way to make some more money. And it kind of turned out to be a disaster. I wouldn't say kind of, but it was definitely a disaster. Now I own 2 coffee shops. I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any real good business acumen. I had a lot of drive, a lot of energy, but I just didn't understand a lot of basic concepts that would have helped me be successful. So, I think after about 1.5 years, I realized I was in over my head, and I was getting in more and more debt, more and more tax trouble, and further behind on my rent. So I approached a woman in town who had owned some drive-through espresso places, who had told me that she always wanted to have a sit-down place downtown, but she never wanted to compete with me. I told her what was going on, and I turned over the keys to her, and she got me out of a little bit of financial trouble. And I decided I was going to take a break, and I moved back down to Los Angeles, where my family was, and started to pursue my rock star career.
Amazing. Wow. So let me ask you about the coffee shop, just in terms of what were the biggest mistakes that you think, now looking back, if you were giving yourself advice, what would be like the biggest mistakes that you would have identified, or maybe you identified then, that caused you to actually not be successful in that business?
Yeah, I definitely did not identify him then. But later in my life, I did go back to college and went to graduate school. And after that, I ended up teaching entrepreneurship for 3 or 4 years at one of the colleges here. And I use this example all the time. So it's a great question, which I have a well-prepared answer for. But what I failed to understand with the coffee shop is my cost of goods, right? So I could never tell you how much was the paper cup, how much was the paper sleeve, how much was the little red straw, how much was the espresso, how much was the milk, how much was the sugar, how much was the carrier if someone took it out, took it to go. And so my pricing was all based around what I saw at maybe Starbucks or Seattle's Best Coffee. And my thought process was, if I can make coffee as good or better than Starbucks or Seattle's Best Coffee, and I can sell it for a lower price, I should be fine. I should make tons and tons of money, which I think is a rational thought process, but not an accurate one for being successful in business. So I still couldn't tell you today whether I made any money at all on the coffee. I know I wasn't making very much money at all. And so some of the kind of desperate things that I would do is try and add other products. So, eventually we started doing baked goods, and we bought refrigerators and deli tables, and we started doing sandwiches as well and selling chocolates. And I just started adding things, thinking if I could sell more things, I would finally make money and become profitable. But it was the same problem. The problem was I had no idea what the sandwich was costing me. I never thought about it, right? I always figured, I'm making money because there's no way that if I make a sandwich and sell it for $6 that it costs me $6 to make. But I had no idea how. And so without that kind of information, I couldn't forecast, I couldn't price appropriately, I couldn't schedule labor appropriately. I mean, I was just kind of doing everything by intuition. And at that point in my life, I didn't have much intuition to go off of because I wasn't very old. I think I was 19 when I started that. And I hadn't been successful in my previous pursuit. So.
Hey, but you had courage, which was amazing. So definitely, and you didn't give up because obviously you are here. So now let's continue with the story. Now the rock star story. So you're in LA. What happened there?
Yeah, so I was born in LA. All my family was down there. So after my father died and after the coffee shop closed, I decided I would go back to my family. I was a guitar player and singer like my father and like my grandfather. We all had kind of professional music aspirations. And so my grandfather was excited to get a chance to bring me in and let me kind of pursue that a little bit. And I realized very quickly that while I was very successful as a musician in Pullman, right? A town of like 24,000 people. Los Angeles is where everybody goes to be successful. And so when I got down there, I was just, I don't know if I'd say overwhelmed, but the amount of people and the amount of talent and the competition for stage time or for practice spaces or for the attention of agents. I mean, it was just like nothing I'd ever seen before. And so I just couldn't get any traction. I had a couple good run-ins. I had a couple good connections. I definitely was hanging out with rock stars, which I'm starting to write a little book about right now, actually. But I just wasn't getting anything going for myself. And so I decided to move back to Seattle, or back to Washington State, and Seattle is where I decided to land. And it was there kind of in the post-grunge, post-Nirvana, post-Soundgarden, post kind of Pearl Jam environment where new, independent music was coming that I finally started to have some success. And so I had put a band together up there. We ended up getting booked a lot, started having some steady shows and steady appearances, got somebody to fund a record for us and started touring, and spent, 4 years there as a musician, touring all over the country, and really trying to make it. And again, it was similar to, what it was like in LA. I mean, in Seattle, we were very popular in Seattle. We had a best-selling record in the Northwest, and wow. We charted with a lot of bands that you've probably heard of. But it was hard to make that a profession. We made enough money to live, but never enough money to have a family. And always opened for really great bands that you've heard of, but never quite got there ourselves. We always had a hotel room, but never the penthouse suite. We always had a van and a trailer, but never the bus. I tell my son, who's a baseball player, I say, it's kind of like being stuck in AAA ball your whole life. It's a good life. Not very many people get there. It's very exciting. You have a lot of talent, but you just never quite got to the show. And that was our band. We just kind of never quite got to the show. So in 2004, I was coming off another tour and thinking about what I might want to do next, because there were two things I always wanted to be in my life. The first one was a rock star, and the second one was a dad. And I knew that with all my heart, I wanted to be a dad. And so I was thinking about, how am I going to have a life like that with this life that I have on the road? I thought maybe what I'll do is I'll go to law school and I'll become an entertainment lawyer. And so there was a music business program in Colorado and Denver. My friend suggested I come out and stay with him. He had just moved out to go to school as well. And so I did that. And that's how I ended up in Denver.
Wow. So you went to actually, you studied entertainment law.
Well, I did start, but shortly thereafter, I met my wife, who was a lawyer, and kind of decided that was enough lawyers in the family, and decided not to pursue law school. Once I saw what really went into that, it no longer interested me, to be honest with you. So I realized just how much tedious writing and research it was. And I love to write and do research, but not like that, like on my own topics and subjects. So I went to grad school for sociology instead, and started building businesses here.
Okay, good. So what's the next business that you built?
Well, the first one was while I was working at night as a valet and going to school during the day. I was passing out these blank parking tickets to these people in Ferraris and Mercedes-Benz and Range Rovers. And I just thought to myself, like, it would be really cool to put ads on these valet tickets. Like, I'm sure somebody wants to reach all these rich people, And so I talked to the guy who owned my valet company about it. And he told me, I said, would you care if I tried to kind of do this, tried to sell advertising on the tickets? And he said, you can try, but it's not going to work. He said, it'll be too expensive and no one will want to do it. It's just kind of a dumb idea. So I said, okay, if it's a dumb idea, do you care if I partner with all the other valet companies to do their tickets as well? And here's the deal I'll make you. I'll give you free valet tickets and I'll pay you a penny per ticket to use them. And he said, yeah, sure, I don't care. So I went around to all the other valet companies in town too, and I got them all to agree to the same deal. And within 2 weeks, I had an advertising deal with Mercedes-Benz for a lease on a S500. And from there, it just kind of went gangbusters. And I often say that, the year before I came to Denver, I think I had worked and had a tax return of like $9,000 or something like that. And within, 2 months of launching this company, I was making single commission checks of like $14,000, $15,000. I'd gotten a Mercedes out of the deal. I'd gotten courtside seats to the Nuggets games because they had become a client. The Avalanche had glass side seats, or whatever you call it, because they had become clients. I even had a free luxury apartment that I was going to stay in because a luxury apartment builder had become my clients. My wife nixed that. She didn't want me to move into my own. This is while we were just dating. She just kind of got a little sad about it. Said, why don't you just move in with me? But yeah, it was quite a life. It was a lot of success. And so that was really the point where I realized that a lot of those failures that I'd had in the previous 10 years before getting to Denver had taught me a lot.
So what did it teach you? Yeah, I mean, let's really, I'm all about processes, right? And I always like to create a process during the podcast, like that leads somewhere to some results that people can apply, right? But listening to your story, your story is amazing. I know it didn't end there because you had that company. Well, maybe we should finish actually the story and then I'm going to ask you the questions. So what happened to that company?
I just started another company that got way more successful. I mean, so I had that company for a long time, just kind of part-time. But one of my other companies that I started from there just really took off. So,
Which
but
one
I do
was
think
that?
that was Lawfather. So from there, so when I started Valet Ads, which was the valet ticket advertising company, I met my wife after that. So I met her. I don't know how long I'd had the company when I met her, but she was a lawyer, like I said. And she started referring, she knew that I had figured out marketing because I had grown that company nationally, and I was working on web marketing. This is in the early days of search engine optimization and paid search. And I was trying to figure out, how can I tell more people about this cool valet ticket advertising company I have? And so I was learning all about web marketing. And she started asking me, hey, this guy posted saying he wants some marketing help, this lawyer, on our lawyers listserv, where she'd say, hey, this woman just said she wanted some marketing help on our listserv. Do you want to talk to her? And she started referring lawyers to me who were trying to get technical and marketing help. And that was a real gold mine. I mean, I had one kid working for me at the time for valet ads, and I jokingly said to him, we're going to start a company called Lawfather because I'm a huge fan of the Godfather movies. It's just going to be a side project, like a total joke. And we're just going to kind of pretend that all we do is lawyer marketing so that when these lawyers reach out to us, we can send them to this website and they'll think that we're like experts in this. Well, I mean, it just went nuts. I mean, it was like the fastest, most successful business I've ever had, even to date today, in terms of how fast the revenue grew. And I realized that we had really found a problem to solve, that there were no companies, no technical marketing company or technical companies or marketing companies that were solely focused on the needs of lawyers. And we filled that for almost everybody right off the bat. So the word of mouth on that was super fast. The ease of signing up customers was super fast. And it goes back to your question now of, what was that big lesson that I learned at the time of valet ads and Lawfather. And that was really that you have to be solving a problem in the market to have a successful company. And my companies before that were all about solving my own personal interests, right? Or having a business in my passion. And I've said this on other podcasts before, but, I had heard a lot of rhetoric that, if you work on your passion every day or something like that, you never work a day in your life, right? Or do what you love and you never work a day in your life. And I had really subscribed to that. And I really thought, man, if I love skateboarding, or if I love rock and roll, or if I love coffee shops and art galleries, I can love it so much that everyone else will love it as much as me, and I'll be wildly successful and wildly wealthy. And it just wasn't true, because I wasn't really solving a problem. It was a nice to have instead of need to have. And when I got valet,
Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, but it has to be a combination, right? Because if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're going to suffer, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to be passionate about valet tickets, but you're passionate about helping people, right? Or you're passionate about advertising, or you're passionate. Were you passionate about something when you were doing it?
Yeah. So what I learned was that I was really passionate about starting businesses, right? I was really passionate about creative ideas and getting things off the ground. I was really passionate about helping myself and other people take the things that were in their mind and turn them into real things in the real world. And I think that's why I've had many businesses over the years, because I'm not so passionate about the long-term, running of them, right? Like, I'm not so passionate about a 20-year career in legal technology. But I'm really passionate about the combination of technology and problem solving and seeing some of my ideas help other people. And I'm passionate about my own creative process and seeing that help other people. So that's really what I really learned from a passion perspective. But no matter how passionate you are, you have to solve a problem, And so when my business focus shifted from just doing what I was personally passionate about to finding a way, finding the passion to help people solve problems, everything started to click. I started to understand my cost of goods sold. I started to understand how to talk to people about problems, how to solve problems, how to do appropriate pricing, how to do value pricing, right? Not to just, if that was old me from the coffee shop days, I would have charged what I thought newspaper advertising costs, right? So maybe the tickets would have cost me $20 to print, and I would have charged $40 because that's what the newspaper would have charged for an ad. But I understood this idea of value pricing, which is you charge as much as the value you create for your partner. And some of those ads cost maybe $500 to $1,500 to produce. And I was selling them for $20,000. I mean, this was a massive amount of profit. And it was like, oh, okay. I don't have to price things comparable to what other people do. I can price things comparable to the value they create for the people who are advertising.
That's genius. It's funny because similar thing happened to me as well. When I started this company, I was more, my passion was to help businesses and help them get organized and help them be successful, right? Mm-hmm. But then I saw the need that really what the entrepreneurs needed to be solving that was not solved for them is like the documentation of systems and processes and procedures was something that they're not going to do themselves because, I would talk to them week after week and they still didn't do it. They never had the time. They're more concentrating on production, more concentrating on sales. You know how it goes. I know how it goes even in my own business internally, right?
Yeah.
And then I said, oh, there is a niche here, there is a need, and there is a value for it. So I totally understand because it's still my passion. My passion is to help people. My passion is to put order in. My passion is to organize. My passion is to help my team. But it's that problem solving. You have to have that in order for your product or your service to actually be valuable in the market, right? So I think it is, from listening to you, it's definitely like the advice that I hear here is that when you have an idea, make sure that you also make sure that idea has value to others, right? That you are helping to solve a problem and you are helping and you're bringing value. And then get yourself educated in that area. I mean, you got yourself educated about job costing and about, the cost of goods sold and what is value pricing and all of that. If you had that in the coffee shop days, you might have been successful, extremely successful, right? I mean, might have been the next Starbucks or Seattle's best coffee.
I might have been. Yeah, for sure. If I had a time machine, I'd give it a shot.
That's right. Exactly. But wow. So then you did open another company, right? I mean, you did open the pillow company.
I did. Yeah. So I think after I had Lawfather, which was the legal technology company, for probably about maybe 6 to 8 years, I started developing some back problems. And I had seen a lot of advertising for pillows that could solve your neck pain, but I hadn't seen a lot of advertising for pillows that could solve your back pain. And so I got online trying to find a pillow to help my back problem. And I had never bought pillows seriously before. I'd always just grabbed garbage out of the Target bin for $5, put a pillowcase on it, and figured a pillow is a pillow is a pillow. But when I really started shopping for pillows for myself, I could see that there were pillows that were $5. There were pillows that were $500, and I couldn't figure out what the difference between them was. Eventually, I realized that I partnered with a pillow manufacturer and made some really great pillows for myself and thought, man, if I could do this for other people, I might be solving a problem as well. And so since I had now developed expertise in online marketing through my legal marketing company, I could go look at different search trends and stuff. And I found that like 25 million people a month were searching for pillows for these different, like the same way that I was, like trying to understand what the heck makes all these pillows different. And so I launched a company with the purpose of helping people buy pillows better, to buy the right pillow for them, so that they didn't have to play what I called pillow roulette, which is just like buy a pillow, hope it works. Doesn't work, buy another pillow, hope it works. But I developed a methodology and eventually an app for making a pillow purchase where you could answer 12 different questions about your sleep style and about pain or discomfort that you were having. And that would give you a recommendation for a very specific pillow that we sold. And if that pillow wasn't the right pillow for you, then we would either adjust it or replace it until you found the right pillow for you. It was a lot like the Zappos model. When Zappos first came out with shoes, everybody told Tony Hesh that no one's going to buy shoes online because they can't touch them. They can't try them on. And I got a lot of similar pushback. No one's going to buy pillows online because they can't touch them. They can't hold them. And I just thought, well, then I'll just make it totally easy for them to get the right pillow. Like they can return them if they need to. And I found that 90% of the people that used the application were totally satisfied. And the 10% who weren't, we fixed their pillow problem. But the amazing thing about that, because sometimes I get also like, God, that costs so much. People don't realize just to send a pillow one way is $25, to send it back is $25, and then to send it back to you is $25. That's $75 just for one shot, just in shipping, one shot to fix your pillow. But those people that we did that for, I couldn't have paid $75 for that good of advertising, because they were so appreciative and so ecstatic that we took like such good care of them, and that we cared so much about their sleep happiness, that they posted testimonials and videos, and I mean, they 5-star reviews. I mean, so I was like, no, this thing that you perceive as a problem, this 10% return rate, these exorbitant shipping costs, turned into a great benefit to our company, because it made those, what they call stark raving fans, right? It just made this group of super fans of Queen Anne pillow. So it was that was another lesson that I learned quite accidentally, but that I practice now in almost everything I do. Is those problem customers, or the people who want something more, or a refund or something like that, can really be turned into your company's best advocates.
How's that?
What's that?
How's that? Like, to give an example, like the specific, like if people are actually complaining, how would they be like the best raving customers or the best?
Because they've already told you that they're very vocal, right? They've already told you that they're going to say something about you, whether it's good or bad, right? And if you make it good, they're definitely going to tell people, and they're definitely going to tell their friends. And if you make it good for them and you say, "Hey, Betty, Steve, could you help me out? I'm so glad that you're comfortable now. Could you help me out? Would you leave a review on my website telling my other customers exactly what you just said to me?" That would be of tremendous benefit to everybody who's trying to not have the problem that you had. And they do it all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is like you definitely found the process of solving problems for your customers, and then how to utilize it in order to solve problems for more customers. It's amazing. So which one of those businesses do you have now?
So I started a software company that sprung from Lawfather. It's called TrialLine, and it's an interactive timeline tool for lawyers. So it lets them make their own timelines. And it's web-based, so everything's interactive. They can attach documents to their events. They can swipe through. They can open up their evidence, show it to a jury, close it, move on to the next event. Even before COVID, I'll tell you this, COVID, unfortunately, mostly put Lawfather out of business, because a lot of our business had transitioned by that time to doing audio, video support and consulting to lawyers on how to digitize their cases and tell their stories. And so a lot of our work was in the courtroom or with lawyers going to trial. And unlike restaurants who could operate at 50 or 25% capacity, the courts just completely closed, and they closed for like 2 years. So I did a couple rounds of PPP. I think I got into about September, and by that time I just had to let everybody go. And I just had no path to getting this rebooted. But before that, and due to those back problems that caused the creation of Queen Anne Pillow, I knew I was tired of crawling around courtrooms. I didn't want to be hauling televisions and monitors anymore. So I was looking for some kind of scalable product that I could build out of what we were doing. And since we were making timelines all the time for poster boards and for, presentations that would go up on an easel in the corner of the courtroom, I thought, man, this would be way more effective if it was digital and interactive, and the lawyers could actually touch it and open up their exhibits and close them and move on. And so we started coding that up.
Wow.
And launched it, I think, January 1st, 2019. So we had about a year before COVID hit.
Interesting. That's amazing. What an amazing story.
Yeah.
Well, so to finalize everything I know we inspired our listeners just by listening to you and all the things that you do. And no matter what, so there was the pandemic, or there was before that, there was failure here or failure there, you just push through and make things move forward. What, if you need to summarize that and you wanted to give an advice to young entrepreneurs or somebody who's thinking about opening their own business and they are facing obstacles, what will be the main things that you will tell them what to do? Like, what advice would you give them?
Well, there's a quote that I love that is, if you want to double your successes, you have to triple your failures. And when I was a very young entrepreneur, when I was trying things that weren't working, I did what I think a lot of people do, which is I thought, the failure of this business, the failure of this coffee shop must be a reflection on me. I must be a failure. And I think a lot of new entrepreneurs who don't have success right off the bat think that there's something wrong with them, that they're dumb, or they just don't have what it takes to be successful. And I would just assure them that that is not the case. There are so many reasons for why a business fails. And there are actually so many reasons for why a business is successful. I mean, look at Lawfather, right person, right time, right place, no genius there other than I had some marketing ability and and was doing that at the time when, the web was starting to take off. But you will have failure, and make sure to really compartmentalize that between business failure and personal failure. And when you have business failure, don't be discouraged. Just try and figure out what happened, what was within your control, and what can you do better next time. Take that knowledge and apply it to the next project. But don't give up, because you hear these stories of overnight success, and they're largely a fallacy, right? And they're not really overnight success, and they're very rare. And real success comes from learning over and over from your mistakes, applying that learning to the next project, and making that next project stronger than the one before.
Absolutely. Also, I would say that learning from you is like having courage, right? I mean, having the courage and having the, the innovation, like, with the mice, okay, or the ingenuity, or the ability to think on your feet, or basically to when you said it, you have to also provide a service or a product that solves the problem for people. So you need to be able to observe and see what that is, so then you can develop it. Anything else? So we have that, don't get discouraged by failure, and have courage to continue on. Find problems, basically find what problems you're trying to solve. Have basically a creative solution, look for solutions. I mean, that's what you did with the pillow, for instance. You saw a problem, but you then figure out how you can solve that problem, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, the final thing I'll say is to really have a plan and have some long range foresight. I do know that people who come from my background, where money is a constant stressor, a constant source of frustration and fear, tend to, when they become adults, tend to have what we call a scarcity mindset or a poverty mindset, in which it's really hard to have a long-term vision for yourself and for your company, because a lot of what you're trying to do is survive. Even when you become a sophisticated business person, even when I became a sophisticated business person, I had a hard time seeing into the future. And I think there's a quote from Alice in Wonderland where someone asks, where do you want to go? She comes to a fork in the road, and someone asks, where do you want to go? And she says, I don't know. And then he says, well, any road will do. If you don't know where you're going, then any road will do. But those aren't roads that you're making. You want to make sure that you're going down the path that you want to be going down. And it's really important for people with my background to step back, set themselves a long-term vision, whether that's 1 year or 5 years, but don't do things out of fear or by the skin of your teeth or the seat of your pants. Try and have some vision and some planning.
Absolutely. Travis, what a great interview. I mean, I really enjoyed talking to you and learning so much, learning about your background, and I learned so much. And it's very inspiring, because you are a success story. You push through all these barriers, and look at you now, which is incredible. So if people want to get a hold of you, want to get in touch, what's the best way to do that?
I would say go to my website, which is just travisluther.com. And from there, you can see all the things I'm currently working on, as well as connect with me on social media, or just reach out personally for any questions you might have.
Great. And before we end off, I definitely want to give a big shout out and thank you to Jessica Fialkovich for introducing us. And I did a podcast with Jessica as well. She is a very successful business broker, and she definitely she gave a lot of advice about exiting and what businesses need to do in order to exit successfully. So thank you, Jessica, for introducing us.
Yeah, Jessica sold my business, so I would definitely recommend her.
That's great. That is great. Absolutely. So Travis, thank you again for being a guest on this podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.